So, good morning to all of you students. Today, I am going to discuss with you all about the agrobacteria mediated gene transformation in plants. And in the previous video, I have given just an overview of you all the um transformation technologies that are used in plants to make transgenic plants. So, let's get started now. So, about the agrobacterium mediated gene transformation, it is saying that Agrobacterium tumefaciens, it is a soil borne gram negative bacterium which is found in soil, and it is a gram negative bacterium based on their cell wall structure, and it is a rod shape and motile, that means they can move. Okay, it is a rod shape bacteria just like bacillus, and they are motile and belongs to the family of Rhizobiaceae. So it belongs to the family of Rhizobiaceae. This Agrobacterium tumefaciens is a phytopathogen, that means it is pathogenic to the plants. Phyto refers to the plants, and pathogen, that means it actually destroys the plant, and it is treated as nature's most effective plant genetic engineer. That means that uh, the way the Agrobacterium tumefaciens insert its genome into the host plant, uh, it just looks like a engineering concept, a genetic engineering concept, the way that we with the help of restriction enzymes we cleave our desired DNA, we insert our desired DNA into the vector, and then it is inserted to the host for cloning strategy. In that way, Agrobacterium tumefaciens naturally they insert their pathogenic gene part into the host plants, just like a genetic engineering that we do. Some workers considered this bacterium as the natural expert of interkingdom gene transfer. Now, there are some workers who consider this type of agrobacterium as natural expert of interkingdom gene transfer. They can transfer the genes from their genome into the host plant, which is of different species. In fact, major credit for the development of plant transformation techniques goes to the natural unique capability of Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Now, the way that Agrobacterium tumefaciens transfer its gene into the host plant, by looking in that concept, we have developed a strategy, we have developed a little bit modifications in the genome of Agrobacterium by modifying their plasmids. Obviously, actually their plasmids contain that pathogenic gene which is getting introduced to the host plant and gets infected. So we have developed some modifications. We have just removed out that pathogenic part. Instead, we have introduced our gene of interest to be inserted into the host plant via Agrobacterium tumefaciens. So that is why this bacterium is the most beloved by plant biotechnologists. So if when it comes the host plant host as plants, plant cells, then the vector that we use is not PBR, not PUC vector, but we use the TI plasmids and the RI plasmids, which are actually taken from Agrobacterium tumefaciens and Agrobacterium rhizogenes. Now there are, so I think you have understood this part what I'm trying to say. Now there are two species of Agrobacterium which are found in our Rhizobiaceae family. One is called Agrobacterium tumefaciens. They induces a disease called crown gall disease. And how they introduce crown gall disease in the plants? Agrobacterium tumefaciens have a plasmid called Ti plasmid, and the name of this Ti plasmid is tumor inducing plasmid. With the help of this Ti plasmid, Agrobacterium tumefaciens causes the infection to the plants. Within the Ti plasmid, there is a region called tDNA region, also known as transfer DNA region. And within this transfer DNA region, there are certain genes which are needed for the biosynthesis of auxin, cytokinin, opines in a irregulated manner. And when this tDNA gene is transferred to the host plant cell, when this tDNA gene is transferred to the host plant cell and getting expressed within the host plant cell's genome, the host plant is getting affected with a disease what we call as crown gall disease. And in the same way, Agrobacterium rhizogenes, they have Ri plasmids, and within the Ri plasmids, there is it also have a tDNA region or transfer DNA region, which has certain genes responsible for inducing hairy root disease. So these are some pictures which has given here. The left picture shows that Agrobacterium tumefaciens is actually affecting the plant cells. Okay, there is a wound generated in the plant cells. Obviously the wound can occur due to mechanically it can occur. So at that wounded site it releases certain chemicals. Okay, certain chemicals are being released, and that chemicals like phenolic compounds, sugars are getting released from that wounded site. And Agrobacterium tumefaciens, with the help of it triggers its activation, it quickly gets colonized in that site, and it binds to that site and causes its infection by transferring its tDNA gene by transferring its tDNA gene from the Ti plasmid into the genome of the genome of that wounded plant, and thereby it cause crown gall disease. It will just look like this. At the base of your stem, there will be a tumor formation within the plant. These type of things we have observed in some of the plants, right? Especially those shrubs. Okay, all the dicots are getting affected with this crown gall disease, not the monocots. Okay, now crown gall disease and your Ti plasmid. So normally it is saying that as Agrobacterium tumefaciens infect the wounded or damaged plant tissues, it induces the formation of a plant tumor called crown gall. Okay, so Agrobacterium tumefaciens, they infect the wounded region of the plant, and it induces the formation of plant tumor known as crown gall, right? And how the Agrobacterium entered to the host plant, how it caused crown gall. The entry of this Agrobacterium into the plant tissues is helped by the release of certain phenolic compounds. Phenolic compounds are actually normally produced by the plants. They are the secondary metabolites, and they are actually synthesized by through succinic acid and phenyl phosphanoid pathways, and they are responsible for the coloring of red fruits and they are the substrates for enzymatic browning of the tissues. Remember, when you cut a plant, when you cut a wood, it becomes after some time it becomes brownish in color, and this occurs due to the presence of the phenolic compounds. It immediately used as a substrates for enzymatic browning. So phenolic oxidation occurs at that time. So when a wounded tissue of a plant, especially the dicot plant, when the wounded region of dicot plant occurs, it releases certain phenolic compounds, right? And like for example of such phenolic compounds are acetosyringone, hydroxyacetosyringone. So when these phenolic compounds is released by from the wounded sites of the plant, the bacterium gets its entry. It quickly colonize in that wounded site. So this acetosyringone and hydroxyacetosyringone, which is the phenolic compounds released from the wounded site, it acts as a signal molecule for colonizing this Agrobacterium tumefaciens to go into that wounded site and joins in that site. Then crown gall formation occurs when the bacterium releases its Ti plasmid, that is tumor inducing plasmid, into the plant cell cytoplasm. Actually what happened, they join to the wounded region of the dicot plant, and after joining in that site they release the tDNA. Actually they release the tDNA, and tDNA is present in the Ti plasmid. Okay, so tDNA is present in the Ti plasmid. That tDNA is going to be released into the plant cell's genome. Okay, so a segment of the Ti plasmid referred to as tDNA actually is transferred from the bacterium into the host, where that tDNA will be integrated into the plant cell genome. And thus crown gall disease is a naturally evolved crown gall disease is a naturally evolved genetic engineering process. So in this way your crown gall disease occur. So if we can able to modify this region, if we can able to modify this tDNA region, we are allowing to infect that agrobacterium to the target host plant where we want to insert our gene of interest. And if we modify the plasmid, the Ti plasmid that we are talking about, by inserting our gene of interest and removing the pathogenic property, not the infection property, the way that it cause infection, that has to be retained, otherwise how it will transfer its tDNA. But the pathogenic part has to be eliminated that cause crown gall disease, and that's the main challenge that we have to face. So tDNA carries the gene. Actually, what does tDNA carries? You will see later on in the next page that tDNA genes carry the genes that code for proteins that are involved in the biosynthesis of growth hormone auxin and cytokinin, and a novel plant metabolite namely called as opine. So tDNA, what does tDNA contain? It contains genes that codes for proteins that are involved for the biosynthesis of growth hormones like auxin and cytokinin, and your a novel plant metabolite is also being generated from the gene that contains within the tDNA called opines. Opines are amino acid derivatives, and also it also have genes which includes agropines, which are the sugar derivatives. Now the tDNA region have these genes. So what's the problem? Auxin is required for our root induction, as we have studied in your plant tissue culture. Cytokinin is required for shoot induction. Okay, the opines and agropines are actually, they are the amino acid derivatives, they are the novel plant metabolites. So how they are causing the disease? Actually, abnormally growth of these hormones leads to the formation of crown gall. The concentration of the auxin and cytokinin is actually the growth hormone produced by the plant naturally is maintained at a suitable ratio, but here forcefully we are introducing these genes into the host plant, so that's why the tumor formation occur. What does tumor? Abnormal growth of the cells actually that leads to the formation of tumor. It is because of this auxin and cytokinin in abnormal concentration, it actually expresses within the plant cell genome after the tDNA getting introduced into the plant cell genome. Abnormal secretion of auxin and cytokinin leads to the formation of tumor within the plant. Okay, now that's the thing, that's the problem that occurs if tDNA getting inserted into the plant genome. But what does opine and agropine do? Actually, it is saying that the opines and the agropines, they are used as nutrients by the Agrobacterium tumefaciens as a source of carbon and energy. So the opines and agropines, which are actually encoded by the genes present within the tDNA, these opines and agropines uh, are utilized by agrobacterium as a source of carbon and energy. So when the agrobacterium tumefaciens is infecting the host plants, what we see a crown gall formation that is responsible by this abnormal auxin and cytokinin synthesis, which are actually encoded by the genes present within the tDNA, and that tDNA is expressing into the host plant after the agrobacterium infected during the course of infection, while the and thus these growth hormones causing the plant cells to proliferate abnormally and form crown gall, just like a tumor. Abnormal growth of cells occur, while these opines and agropines, which are the novel plant metabolites not generally produced by plants also in small quantity, these opines are forcefully getting expressed due to the presence of the genes found within the tDNA region. They are forcefully allowing the plant cell to release the opines and agropines because a gene has been present within the tDNA region for the opine and agropine production, and it is going to be expressed into the plant cell genome when the agrobacterium infect the host plant. And thus these opines are forcefully allowing the plant cell to produce, to express, and these opines are used, agropines are used by the bacterial cells, by the agrobacterium cells to use them for energy, to use them as a source of carbon also. Thus, the plants, most of the energy that is being produced during photosynthesis are invested in opine and agropine production, and crown gall formation occur. This leads to decreased plant growths. It's um, um, what can I say? Not viability. I cannot say viability. The plant it is viable, but its productivity becomes low actually. Okay, because of infection by the agrobacterium. Most of the energy is getting invested for the production of opines and agropines, which are utilized by the agrobacterium. Okay, and why? That I have said already, because opine catabolizing region, agropine catabolizing regions, even the opine production genes are found within the agrobacterium. So, as such, opines and agropines are not normally part of the plant metabolism now, neither it is metabolized. So Agrobacterium tumefaciens genetically transform the plant cell and create a biosynthetic machinery to produce nutrients for its own use. So it is using the Agrobacterium tumefaciens is using the plant as just like a bioreactor, just like a fermenter, where it is producing its own products and utilizing them. And on the other hand, it is using all the energy stuffs to make these propines, okay, which are actually not normally a part of plant's metabolism or metabolic product. And at the other hand, with the due to the presence of auxin and cytokinin, abnormal growth of this expression of these genes leads to the crown gall formation. So I hope you have understood what I am trying to say this part. Okay, you can reply me after watching this video if you have some doubt. Now, as bacteria multiply, as bacteria multiply and continue its infection, crown gall develops, which is a visible mass of the accumulated bacteria and plant material. So when the bacteria goes on multiplication, because one bacteria is causing the infection, okay, but there are thousands and thousands of bacteria to form colonies, which continues the infection to the plant cell, and thus crown gall develops, which is a crown gall is what, a visible mass of accumulated bacteria and plant material. Crown gall formation is the consequence of the transfer, integration and expression of the tDNA genes or Ti plasmid. So what does crown gall is all about? It is the consequence, it is a result of transfer of the tDNA, integration, that means the tDNA is getting expressed into the plant cell's genome through a process known as illegitimate recombination. There is a process called illegitimate recombination. I have illegitimate. Sorry, I have done wrong spelling. Illegitimate recombination. Now, in the illegitimate recombination, it is different from homologous recombination. There are some homologous sequence obviously present, but they are introducing into the plant cell genome, that tDNA. So Agrobacterium tumefaciens, they are causing infection to the plant's genome uh, by transferring their tDNA, and the tDNA is getting expressed into the plant cell genome that cause crown gall disease. On the other hand, it also expresses opines, agropines, which are utilized by the agrobacterium cells as a source of energy. So the genetic transformation leads to the formation of crown gall tumors which interfere with the normal growth of the plant. It is saying that several dicotyledonous plants are affected by crown gall disease like grapes, rose, stone fruit trees. So most of the plants are actually affected by this crown gall disease. Agrobacterium tumefaciens actually is affecting mostly, it is affecting the uh, your dicots plant, actually dicotyledonous plants, those who are having two cotyledons in their seeds. So we have seen that how agrobacterium theoretically it causes its infection to the dicot plants. Now let us discuss about the Ti plasmid, because we are interested on what are the genes present on the Ti plasmid, because within the Ti plasmid the tDNA region is going to be integrated into the host plant genome. So we have to see the genes also, what it causes and how it expresses. So little bit information about the Ti plasmid has to be mentioned here. Questions comes normally. So the Ti plasmids, which are of size of 200 kilobase in length, it exists as a independent replicating circular DNA molecules, just like plasmids do. They are extra chromosomal double stranded circular DNA molecules which are capable of independent replication. And these Ti plasmid are found within the Agrobacterium tumefaciens cells. The tDNA or transferred DNA is variable in length in in the range of 12 to 24 kb. Now, if I say the tDNA, what is the length of the tDNA within the Ti plasmid? Generally, Ti plasmid is of 200 kb of length, but the tDNA can vary. It may be from 12 kb to 24 kb. Now it depends on the bacterial strain from which the TI plasmids have come. Okay, there are different strains of TI plasmids that we will see, like Nopaline strains of TI plasmid, Octopine strains of TI plasmid. Two strains of TI plasmids are there. Nopaline strains of TI plasmid, Octopine strains of TI plasmid. So depending on which strains of TI plasmid we have used, their tDNA varies in length. Okay, some TI plasmid have a length of 20 kb because they have only one tDNA region. Okay, while there are some strains of TI plasmid like octopine strains of TI plasmid which have two tDNA regions referred to as TL and TR, and the length of the TL is 14 kb while length of the TR is 7 kb respectively. So it is saying clearly that depending on the tDNA length, the tDNA length is actually varies between the strains depending on the strains from where the TI plasmids come. Okay, like Nopaline strains of TI plasmid have only one tDNA region, right? And the length of the tDNA in Nopaline strains of TI plasmid is of 20 kb. While if you see the octopine strains of TI plasmid, they have two tDNA region, and the name of the two tDNA region referred to as TL and TR, which are of 14 kb and 7 kb in length. So the length of TL is 14 kb, length of TR is 7 kb. Now, I have not shown you the Nopaline strain of TI plasmid and Octopine strain of TI plasmid, but I will try to show you in the next pages. In the next pages, the Octopine and Nopaline strains of TI plasmid has been shown. But let us see the general representation of a TI plasmid, also the all DNA regions. So TI plasmid has three important regions. There are also some minor regions also that we are not actually uh, here we are studying about. The main important regions which are found in TI plasmid is the tDNA region. Now this tDNA region has the genes for the biosynthesis of auxins, cytokinin and opine. So if you see, if I show you the TI plasmid, so this is the tDNA region. It looks like this, and you see the tDNA regions has the genes for the biosynthesis of auxin, for the biosynthesis of cytokinin, and for the biosynthesis of opines, which will be further utilized by the agrobacterium as a source of carbon and energy. And these genes, that is the genes for auxin, cytokinin and opines, are flanked. Flanked means they are located within the left border and right border repeated sequence. So the left border and the right border actually they have some repeated sequence of 24 base pair repeats each of the border sequence, and within the left border and right border sequence we have these genes responsible for the auxin, cytokinin and opine biosynthesis. Obviously, it is not so much simple as it is given in this figure. The auxin synthesis genes are subdivided also within the tDNA. The cytokinin genes are also present. Uh, Not only one gene is responsible for the cytokinin synthesis. There are also some other subgenes present on the tDNA which responsible for the cytokinin biosynthesis and opine synthesis regions also. So it has been simply represented that the tDNA region consists of genes needed for the biosynthesis of auxin, cytokinin, and opine, and it is flanked. That means these genes are present within the left border and right border repeated sequence. And these three genes, auxin, cytokinin, and opines, are called as oncogenes. Ho- And why they are called as oncogenes? Because they are responsible for the formation of tumor, actually, right? So more we will go for the information of this tDNA region. Just it is given on the next pages. Let us see the next important region, which is your tDNA border. Okay, the tDNA border that we have seen, that the tDNA border is a set of 24 kb sequence. The length of the tDNA border, each of them is of 24 kb, and it is present on both sides of the tDNA. So in the middle there is tDNA, which codes for the genes needed for the auxin biosynthesis, cytokinin biosynthesis, and opine biosynthesis. And flanking the regions, there are tDNA borders. There are tDNA borders. This is the left border repeat. This is the right border repeat. Each of the length of the left border and right border is of 24 kb. 24 kb in length, right? And it is now clearly established that this right border is more critical for the tDNA transfer and tumorigenesis, because you will see in the next pages of this PDF that this right border is involved by the enzymes, different enzymes, to use them, to recognize them, and they will cleave the tDNA region, so that they can able to transfer the tDNA region into the host plant cells. Okay, let us see the virulence region. Why, what we have said, what I have said in case of the of this right border and left border repeats, that they are of 24 kb in length, and they are actually is responsible for transfer of your right border into the they are actually responsible for the transfer of tDNA into the plant cells. Okay, now comes the virulence regions, which is very important region. It has many genes present. It has many genes present. Virulence region are actually the genes responsible for transfer of tDNA into the host plant. So we should not eliminate this virulence region, because they are important for transfer of tDNA into the host plant, and these virulence region are located outside the tDNA. See, the virulence region are located outside the DNA, and they are also known as VIR genes. It has been shown here. They are also known as VIR genes or virulence region. Now, these VIR regions, it has genes which codes for proteins, and those proteins are involved in your tDNA transfer. And there are about 9 VIR gene operons which has been identified. Okay, I have said about the operons, the open reading frame, right? So there are about 9 VIR gene operons which has been identified, and those 9 VIR gene operons code for proteins which are needed for tDNA transfer. Okay, and what are those 9 VIR gene operons? The 9 VIR gene operons are your VIRA, VIRA, VIRG, VIRG, then VIRB1, VIRB1, VIRC1, VIRC1, VIRD1, D2, D4, VIRD1, VIRD2, VIRD4, and VIR E1 and VIR E2, VIR E1 and VIR E2. So these are the 9 VIR gene operons which has been identified. These all genes will encode some proteins, and these proteins will be involved in your transfer of your tDNA into the host plant genome. And what I have said, that is VIR genes are responsible for transfer of tDNA into the host plant cells. These all VIR genes regulate the transfer of your tDNA. So that's why it is very, very important. We have to see their function, each of them. Okay, their function not in detail, so much detail. We will go for the function, for their overview function actually. Okay. The next region is very simply, you can say, the opine catabolism region. The opine catabolism region, as the name suggests, what does catabolism, you know, breakdown of products. What products it will break? Opine. So opine is synthesized. Opine is synthesized within the tDNA region. The tDNA region have opine synthesizing genes, and that opines which will be finally produced by the plant, it has to be utilized by the agrobacterium cell. For that reason, there is opine catabolism region. So this region consists of proteins. This region consists of proteins which are involved in uptake and metabolism of your opines. Okay, so opine catabolism region is used for uptaking the opines that are being produced by the host bacterium cell after the cell is going to be infected by the agrobacterium by introducing the tDNA region. Beside this, there are also some other regions, like there is a origin of replication. You can see it is responsible for the DNA replication of the TI plasmid. It permits the TI plasmid to be stably maintained within the agrobacterium tumefaciens. So this was about the structure of the tDNA region and all the other stuffs, all the other things which are present within the TI plasmid. Let us see more detail about this tDNA region in the next page. So I have said, wait for a minute. So I have said that this TI plasmid can be classified into different types based on the type of opine produced by their genes. Okay, so this TI plasmid can be classified into different types based on what type of opine is produced by their genes. So there are different types of opines which are encoded by the TI plasmid. There are different types of opines coded by the TI plasmid, and those opines are your octopine, nopaline, succinamopine, and leucinopine. I hope you can see this name of these opines. So these are different types of opines which are being produced by the agrobacterium, by the TI plasmid. Octopine, nopaline, succinamopine, and leucinopine. So based on the different types of opines, we see different type of strains of TI plasmid. Now the different TI plasmid can be grouped into two general categories. So we categorize the TI plasmid into two types: octopine type TI plasmid and nopaline type TI plasmid. And what is the difference between octopine type TI plasmid and nopaline type TI plasmid is mainly their arrangement of their tDNA. Okay, So due to the based on the arrangement of tDNA, we have categorized these Ti plasmids into two types, classified into two types: octopine type Ti plasmid and nopaline type Ti plasmid. The succinamopline and leucinopine specifying Ti plasmids are similar to the nopaline type of Ti plasmid. If you see the succinamopine producing Ti plasmid and leucinopine, I have repeatedly I'm saying this: succinamopine, leucinopine, octopine, nopaline are the different types of opines which are produced by the Ti plasmid. So the succinamopine, leucinopine types of Ti plasmid look similar with the nopaline type, while the octopine type of Ti plasmid forms a separate group. Both the octopine and nopaline type of Ti plasmid have some important functional regions. As I have said that octopine type of Ti plasmid have tDNA referred to as TL and TR. So they have octopine type of Ti plasmid. They have two tDNA regions known as TL and TR of 14 kb and 7 kb in length, whereas nopaline type Ti plasmid, they have only one tDNA region and the length of the tDNA is of 20 kb. So let us see what gene it encodes. I have already discussed this Ti plasmid in detail little bit. So it consists of tDNA containing oncogenes, all the auxin synthesis, cytokinin synthesis genes tDNA have, and the opine synthesis gene. That depending upon what type of opines they are producing, we classify the different type of Ti plasmid: octopine type and nopaline type, and it's transferred into the host plant genome. It also consists of VIR region, the virulence region, which will regulate the transfer of tDNA into the plant cells. There is also a opine catabolism region which will produce the enzymes which are necessary for breakdown and utilization of the opines by the agrobacterium, because agrobacterium will use this opine for their for as a source of energy, as a source of carbon. It also consists of a region called ORET. Okay, it also consists of a region called ORET. ORET is actually is needed for conjugative transfer region, which functions as conjugative transfer of plasmid. It can also function in tDNA transfer when tDNA borders are deleted. So this both this octopine type Ti plasmid or nopaline type Ti plasmid. Actually, I am saying about whole Ti plasmid. Ti plasmid also consists of a extra region known as ORET. ORET is needed for conjugative transfer. You know about bacterial conjugation, that when two bacteria with the help of their sex pili, they join and they form a conjugation tube. They form a conjugation tube like this. They form a conjugation tube like this, through the help of which the genetic material is transferred from the donor bacteria to the recipient bacterial cell. The F plus cell and the F minus cell, remember in your microbiology classes, the bacterial conjugation. This has also been studied in your genetics chapter also, uh, that I have studied with you all. So the conjugative transfer is just like this. It The conjugative transfer gene present within the Ti plasmid, okay, which is represented by ORET or TRA region. With the help of this conjugative transfer, the bacteriobacterium cell can transfer its whole tDNA. It transfer its whole tDNA in from one bacterial cell to the other bacterial cell. Even with the help of this ODT or conjugative transfer region, they can transfer the tDNA into the host. They can also transfer the tDNA into the host plant cell when the tDNA borders are deleted. Okay. And there is the origin of replication also for propagation of your agrobacterium, so that agrobacterium can multiply themselves, um, so that the Ti plasmid can multiply themselves in your agrobacterium cells. So you can see the all the regions, the Nopaline type Ti plasmid, the Octopine type Ti plasmid. I have said the Octopine type Ti plasmid, they have two tDNA regions, TL and TR. This has not been shown here, while the Nopaline type Ti plasmid has only one tDNA regions of 20 kb in length. Okay, and all the other things that you can see here, the TRA region which are needed for conjugative transfer, the OC region, AC region, all the other things are also being given. The VIR region is especially important for regulation of your tDNA transfer. This VIR region will encode the genes which allow the tDNA to transfer into the host plant. So here you see, you also see the TRA region here also. Okay, NC refers to the Nopaline catabolism region, okay, and OC refers to the Octopine catabolism region. AC, I think it is Agropine catabolism region. It will be ACC as given here also. Okay, so now let us discuss about the more about details about the tDNA genes which are found within the tDNA. So I'm not going for this whole thing, okay, I'm not going through this whole theory, but I will just go to the table that has been given in this PDF. Based on the table, we can able to identify the genes, what are the actual genes needed for the that codes for the oxygen biosynthesis within the tDNA, what are the genes which actually codes for the cytokinin biosynthesis of the tDNA, we will see. So you have to study this, because more information has been given. I am just discussing the genes which are found in the tDNA. So this is actual what the tDNA structure looks like, not simply like this that has been given in your previous pages. The oxygen biosynthesis gene, the cytokinin biosynthesis gene, the opine biosynthesis gene. Not like that actually. It looks like this actually. You can see different type of genes: IAAH, IAAM, IPT, TML, NOS. You can see that this tDNA is enclosed within the right border and the left border repeats. So there are right border and left border repeats. Between this right border and left border we have this tDNA region. So let us see and discuss all those important regions. So I'm just going through this part. The table has been given in your PDF. uh, because of simplicity I am just going through this diagram. Okay, so first you see IAAM. Okay, you see the IAM right here. IAAM this is given in capital letter, but if I write that, this is showing the genetic product, the protein product. But if you want to write the genes, you have to write in small letter. The first letter will be in small. It will be IAA capital M. Okay, so what does IAAM encodes? IAAM involved in oxygen biosynthesis, and this IAAM encodes an enzyme, and the name of the enzyme is tryptophan 2 monooxygenase. I am writing TRP. Okay, tryptophan 2 monooxygenase. Okay, so IAAM encodes this enzyme tryptophan 2 monooxygenase. What does this enzyme do? It converts the tryptophan, this tryptophan 2 monooxygenase converts the tryptophan into indole 3 acetamide, or IAM. So just for simplicity I am writing here for your clarification. So IAAM, this gene found within the tDNA region, it is involved in oxygen biosynthesis, and this encodes an enzyme. This gene encodes an enzyme known as tryptophan to monooxygenase, and this enzyme is responsible for conversion of tryptophan into indole 3 acetamide. So this tryptophan to monooxygenase is converting tryptophan, you know, essential amino acid. It is converting this tryptophan into indole 3 acetamide, which is known as IAM. Indole 3 acetamide, also known as IAM. So I think you have understood about the IAAM. So IAAM encodes this enzyme tryptophan to monooxygenase, and this tryptophan to monooxygenase responsible for converting tryptophan into indole 3 acetamide. Let us see the next gene. So IAAM involved in oxygen biosynthesis. Next is IAAH, located here, right here. So IAAH, this gene is also involved in oxygen biosynthesis, and this gene encodes an enzyme. Obviously, the gene name will be small letter IAA, then capital H. So this gene encodes an enzyme known as indole 3 acetamide hydrolase. Name of the enzyme is indole 3 acetamide hydrolase. Indole 3 acetamide hydrolase. What does this enzyme do? It converts the IAM, which is your indole 3 acetamide, into indole 3 acetic acid. So indole 3 acetamide hydrolase convert the indole 3 acetamide into indole 3 acetic acid, and we know all that indole 3 acetic acid is an example of a auxin. In this way your auxin synthesis occurs by these two genes. So these two genes are involved in auxin biosynthesis: IAAM, which encodes which encodes tryptophan 2 monooxygenase, and IAAH, which encodes indole 3 acetamide hydrolase. So just I am writing here for your clarification of IAH. So IAAH, it's already been 50 minutes that I'm teaching you now. So IAAH encodes this enzyme called uh, indole 3 acetamide hydrolase. Indole 3 acetamide hydrolase, and this enzyme is responsible for converting your indole this enzyme is responsible for conversion of IAM is your indole 3 acetamide into indole 3 acetic acid. Indole 3 acetic acid. Okay, and this enzyme is needed for conversion, and we all know that indole 3 acetic acid is an example of what? Auxin. So for auxin biosynthesis gene we need these two enzyme, which is IAAM and IAAH, right? So these are all auxin biosynthesis gene. Next is your cytokinin biosynthesis gene. For cytokinin biosynthesis gene we need IPT. This one we need IPT. Okay, I'm just moving this one. We need IPT. Okay, IPT is responsible for cytokinin biosynthesis. IPT codes for cytokinin biosynthesis. This IPT gene is involving in cytokinin biosynthesis. This gene is encoding an enzyme. Wait for a minute. This gene is encoding IPT. It will be in small letter. Okay. The gene will be represented always in small letter first. So IPT encodes an enzyme, and name of the enzyme is your isopentyl transferase. Isopentyl TYL transferase. So these isopentyl transferase catalyze the formation of isopentyl adenine. So this enzyme, this gene is responsible for cytokinin biosynthesis IPT. It codes for enzyme isopentyl transferase, and this enzyme is actually catalyzing the formation of isopentyl adenine, right? Okay. So this involve in cytokinin biosynthesis, and this it is IPT encode for isopentyl transferase enzyme, which catalyzes the formation of isopentyl adenine. The next is your NMS, not NMS, NOS. Okay. Well, obviously, NOS refers to the nopalin biosynthesis. If there is octopine, there will be octopine biosynthesis gene, because these are all what? Variants of opines. Okay. So some TI plasmid have nopalin biosynthesis gene, some TI plasmid have octopine biosynthesis gene, based on which we categorize the TI plasmid also into two classification: octopine type and nopalin type TI plasmid. So this nopalin type TI plasmid, as given here, it encodes an enzyme called nopalin synthase. So this nopalin biosynthesis gene, the gene in is written in small letter NOS. It encodes an enzyme, and that enzyme is nopalin synthase. Nopalin synthase. Okay, and this nopalin synthase gene catalyze the formation of nopalin from arginine and pyruvic acid. So nopalin synthase actually causes the synthesis of nopalin from arginine and pyruvic acid. So they use arginine, they use pyruvic acid, and with the help of nopalin synthase gene, they they prepare nopalin from those protein and acid, from those arginine and pyruvic acid. Next is your left border and right border repeats. The left border and the right border repeats shown here, left border and right border. And these are actually sites for endonuclease action. Which are the endonuclease? We use restriction endonuclease separately for our artificial genetic engineering, but in case of natural genetic engineering, here the endonuclease that are used are all the VIR genes. VIR genes have endonuclease function, and they are responsible for cleaving and allowing this tDNA to be transferred to the host plant cells. So all the regulation of the transfer of the tDNA done by the VIR genes, right? So these are the sites for endonuclease action. That means the left border and the right border region. These regions are actually recognized by the VIR genes, the products of the VIR genes, obviously, which have endonuclease function during tDNA transfer. And these are the only sequence of tDNA which are essential, because if we remove this region, the VIR genes cannot recognize these regions and cannot able to transfer the tDNA. Okay, so this was all about the tDNA region in detail. Okay, not more than description question will come in your exam. Okay, because you are studying in BSc, not in MSc, or not you are doing PhD. Okay, so this is what all about what contains within the tDNA. Let us see the VIR genes now. Let us see the VIR genes now. So you see the VIR genes. I have said that VIR genes are responsible for the transfer of your tDNA into the host plant cell, and they are located outside the tDNA, and that region is known as VIR or virulence region, right? So this VIR region actually codes for proteins which are involved in your tDNA transfer. There are 9 VIR gene operons which have been identified till now. Let us see the function of each of these VIR region. So you can see that VIR A, VIR H, VIR B, G, C, D, E, F. There is also some subdivisions as well. VIR D1, D2, D4 is there. VIR B1 and B2 is there. No, sorry, VIR B1 is only present, and VIR E1 and E2 is present actually. Okay, so let us see the function of each of them. Okay, so first is VIR A. First is about VIR A. VIR A actually encodes a sensor protein. Okay, this VIR A encodes a sensor protein which is a receptor for acetylserine and function as an autokinase and phosphorylate the VIRG protein. It acts as a constitutive expression. So VIRA is a sensor protein. It is actually encodes the receptor found in the membranes of agrobacterium. Just like a receptor, it allows the acetylserine to come and interact from outside, because this acetylserine, hydroxyacetylserine are actually are being observed from the wounded regions of the dicot plant, and they actually causes this receptor region to function as an autokinase. Just like you have studied the signal transduction pathway, the tyrosine kinase pathway you have studied, I think, in your biochemistry classes. So here the acetylserine, here this acetylserine is acting as a ligand, and this VIRA, which is acting as a receptor for that acetylserine, when the acetylserine comes and binds to this VIRA product, which is a receptor, it actually acts as an autokinase. It quickly phosphorylate the VIRG proteins, which is found here, and VIRG proteins forms a dimer. Okay, so So it is acting as a autokinase. It is a receptor protein VIRA acting as a autokinase when acetylserine or other phenolic compounds interacts and binds. And after when its autokinase activity is activated, it quickly activates the VIRG by phosphorylating the VIRG. So let us see now what the VIRG now. VIRG is a DNA binding protein. It probably forms a dimer after phosphorylation by VIRA. Now, when VIRG gets activated due to phosphorylation done by VIRA, because VIRA acting as a uh, it is acting as a autokinase. It is a receptor protein, but it acts as a autokinase. When it becomes activated, it quickly phosphorylates VIRG, and VIRG forms a dimer. Means two VIRG molecules get joined, they form a dimer, and after phosphorylation by VIRA, and then this VIRG will induce activation of all the other VIR gene operons from A to H. So from operons A to H, all are getting activated done by VIRG then. So simple thing, VIRA is an autokinase. It is a receptor for acetylserine. When acetylserine as a ligand comes and binds from the wounded site, VIRA gets quickly activated. It has a tyrosine kinase activity. Oh, sorry, it has an autokinase activity. It quickly phosphorylates the VIRG. VIRG, after phosphorylation, they form a dimer, and now this activated VIRG phosphorylate the expression phosphorylate and induces expression of all the other 7 VIR gene operons, right? Next comes the VIRB now. VIRB is located just next to G, and VIRB is actually, it is a membrane protein, and this VIRB gene is responsible for the formation of channel, a channel, or you can say tube, for allowing the tDNA to be transferred from the agrobacterium to the host plant cell. So VIRB is a membrane protein. It actually forms a channel for the tDNA to be transported. That is a conjugal tube channel, just like a conjugation tube occurs done by the sex villi during your bacterial conjugation process to transfer the genetic material, right, from the F plus cell to the F minus cell. Just like that here, here the VIRB forms a conjugation tube so that it allows the transfer of the tDNA from the agrobacterium cell to the plant cell. So if this is the plant cell, and if this is the plasmid of the agrobacterium cell, and if this is the tDNA which is found within the bacterial cell, so this tDNA region is cut and allows to transfer through the help of this conjugal tube. This conjugal tube is actually prepared by is encoded by the VIRB gene. Okay. VIRB11 has an ATPase activity also. VIRB11 actually here, above the B there is written 11 here. Okay, above the B you can see 11 has been written. 11 refers to the number of genes which are found within the VIRB. Okay, so actually these are the operon regions. Okay, these are all the operons, all the open reading frames, and how many genes are present in that operons has been mentioned here. 2 for VIRE, there are 4 genes for VIRD, 2 genes for VIRC, 1 gene for VIRG, 11 genes for VIRB. So out of those 11 genes which are found on this VIR operon, there is one gene known as VIR B11. VIR B11. This VIR B11 has an ATPase activity. Okay. Next comes VIRC, where it is located right here next to D. VIRC is a helicase enzyme. It encodes a helicase enzyme which binds to the region just outside the T right border and involved in unwinding of tDNA. So VIRC is actually bind to the right border. This VIRC encodes a protein which bind to the right border sequence, and it cause unwinding. It cause unwinding of your tDNA. It cause unwinding of your tDNA region, right? Then comes, so VIRC, I have said that it is a helicase enzyme. It is VIRC encodes a helicase enzyme. There are 2 VIR genes found within this VIRC operon, and this VIRC has a helicase activity, encodes a helicase activity which actually forms a which actually binds to the right border repeated sequence of tDNA and is involved in unwinding of tDNA. If I show you the diagram, you can able to identify that thing. So it has not been shown here. VIRC has not been shown here. VIR D1 and D2 has been shown. So I am leaving this diagram now. So VIRC actually mainly involved in unwinding of the tDNA. Actually, it has a helicase activity. Okay, now comes the VIRD. The VIRD having 4 genes within these operon regions. VIRD, out of the VIRD, out of the 4 genes, there is a gene known as VIRD1. VIRD1 and D2 are mainly involved actually. VIRD1 has a topoisomerase activity. It binds to the right border of the tDNA. So VIR D1 binds to the right border of the tDNA and it has a topoisomerase activity. And we all know about the topoisomerase. It actually maintains the degree of supercoiling in the DNA, whether it is positive supercoiling over wound or negative supercoiling under wound DNA coiling. So this helicase maintains that supercoiling, and this topoisomerase maintains that supercoiling. There is also another gene called VIRD2, VIRD2, VIRD2 found within this VIRD operon. It is an endonuclease, and we all know what endonuclease do. It cleaves, it causes nick in the right border of your tDNA and allows the tDNA to be unwinded from the tDNA region, from the TI plasmid. So VIRD has 4 genes, out of which 2 genes has been mentioned here, VIRD1 and VIRD2. VIRD1 actually involved in as a topoisomerase activity, whereas VIRD2 has a endonuclease activity. It nicks to the right border. If you see the image now, I can able to explain this. So you can see a tDNA here, and there is a left border and a right border repeated regions where you can see the VIRD1 and VIRD2 has bind. I have said that VIRD1 has a topoisomerase activity. VIRD1 maintains the topology of the DNA, it maintains the coiling of the DNA so that the DNA does not become overwound or underwound, which is known as positive supercoiling and negative supercoiling respectively. Whereas VIRD2, if you see, VIRD2 has an endonuclease activity. You can see that a nick formation has been done. A nick formation has been done by the VIRD2, and it causes the nick at the right border. So within the right border, the nick formation. Nick means what? Nick means cut. Nick means cut. A cut has been occurred. A cleavage has been done in the right border region. Okay, and thus we can see a newly strand is getting synthesized on the one hand of the tDNA, while displacement of the old strand of tDNA is going to be done by the VIRD2. Now these small round things are actually, you all know, single stranded DNA binding protein. Single stranded DNA binding protein, here the gene is responsible for this single stranded DNA binding protein activity is done by VIRE2. And what does single stranded DNA binding protein do? We all know it protects the single stranded DNA from getting degraded by nuclease enzyme, and also to prevent rewinding of this displaced strand of tDNA. Okay, so I have mentioned all of you of these terms. There are some terms yet to be left. VIRF, VIRE I have not said. VIRE, just now I have said that it is single stranded DNA binding protein, uh, helps the tDNA to be stabilized during its transfer, and it binds till it enters to its genome. It binds this VIRE. VIRF region has not been understood yet. More research is going on. Well, VIRG, I have already said that VIRG forms a dimer after phosphorylation done by VIRA, and this VIRG is responsible for activation of all the other 8 VIR gene operons. And the function of VIRH has also still not been understood as well. So this was all about the VIR regions. Okay. Now let us see the way that how your tDNA region is transferred to the host plant. Okay, so let's discuss. It will cause you a lengthy lecture today, because I will say how the tDNA is going to transfer. Now, how we are preparing the plasmids, that will be discussed on the next lecture. So the exact mechanism for transfer of tDNA is not clearly understood. DNA transfer is brought about by the VIR region known as the VIR regulon. This I have already said that whole tDNA transfer is done by the VIR region. VIR regulon is called. A regulon is a group of operons. What does regulon means? Regulon means a group of operons which are involved in the same function and subject to some degree of common regulation. So we are saying VIR regulon region because it consists of series of genes. And it consists of group of operons which are involved in the same function, that is transfer of the tDNA into the host plant. The VIR regulon is actually activated by a phenolic signal products like acetosyringone and alpha hydroxy acetosyringone. So VIR genes, the VIR regulon, the operons which are found on the VIR genes are going to be activated due to the action of a signal molecules, a phenolic compound which acts as a signal molecules called acetosyringone and alpha hydroxy acetosyringone. These acetosyringone and alpha hydroxy acetosyringone are actually produced by the wounded tissues of all dicot plants. We see the browning of the tissues when we cut a plant. It is due to the action of this acetosyringone and hydroxy acetosyringone, which are going to be oxidized, that cause browning of the tissues when we cut them in that site. And due to this reason also, this due to the release of this acetosyringone and hydroxy acetosyringone in the wounded site, it cause activation of the VIR operon genes found within the VIR regulon. The phenolic signal molecules bind to the VIRA gene product. I have said that about VIRA, that VIRA is a receptor. It has a kinase activity, it has a autokinase activity, so it binds to the VIRA and thus VIRA protein. VIRA functions in conjunction with a protein called CHVE. So more information has been given that VIRA combined with the protein called CHVE, which is a sugar binding protein. These proteins are located in the inner membrane of Agrobacterium. So this CHVE protein, which is a sugar binding protein, it is actually located in the inner membrane of Agrobacterium, and they actually conjugate with VIRA. VIRA is a receptor. It has autokinase activity. Okay. Now VIRA acts as a receptor for these signal molecules and becomes activated due to their binding to it. So VIRA becomes activated when this acetosyringone and hydroxyacetosyringone, which are the phenolic compounds created by the wounded region sites, interact with the VIRA and makes them activate. Activate VRA function as a autokinase and phosphorylates itself. As the name suggests, VRA is a autokinase. So when it gets activated due to the presence of acetosyringone and hydroxyacetosyringone in the wounded regions of dicot plants, this VRA gets activated and it phosphorylates itself because it has a autokinase activity. And we all know kinase normally phosphorylate. Autokinase means they phosphorylate itself. Then the phosphorylated VIRA then tries to phosphorylate the VIRG proteins. It has been clearly mentioned here that VIRA then phosphorylates the VIRG proteins. And most likely VIRG dimerizes, that means it forms a dimer, two molecules of VIRG, and then it induces expression of all the other 8 VIR gene operons. VIRG protein is a DNA binding protein and requires phosphorylation for its DNA binding function. So VIRG, it is a DNA binding protein, and for its activity we need to phosphorylate the VIRG, and that phosphorylation is done by the VIRA, which itself become phosphorylated when it interacts with the phenolic compounds formed by the wounded tissue of the dicot plants. So the signal phenolic molecules binds to the VIRA protein, and this VIRA protein, the the signal phenolic molecules, that is your acetosyringone or hydroxyacetosyringone, as you can see the diagram here, it interacts with the VIRA protein, and VIR-A protein associate with the CHVE protein. CHVE protein is a sugar binding protein which then phosphorylates itself, and it also phosphorylates the VIRG protein, which is a DNA binding protein. Phosphorylated VIRG causes transcription of all the other 8 VIR gene operons. So VIRG then what do? VIRG when becomes activate, it causes transcription of all the other 8 VIR gene operons. And why it causes transcription? Because for expression of the protein products of the all the other 8 VIR gene. VIRDI gene product, VIRDI protein has a DI, not it is D1, it will be a D1. So the first product that is going to be activated by VIRG is VIRD1. VIRD1 has a topoisomerase activity, as I have already discussed with you previously. This VIRD1 binds to the right border sequence and it maintains the supercoil. It maintains the coiling of the DNA. It relaxes supercoiling. If there is a overcoiling of the DNA, that is called as supercoiling, that has to be relaxed. That is done by the VIRD1. And why it supercoiling occurs? Because when you are unwinding the DNA, as done by the VIRC, you see that coiling occurs, super coiling occurs at the front side of your unwinding region. And that has been also been observed when we are doing replication as well, that when helicase unwinds the DNA ahead of the replication fork, super coiling of the DNA, that means too much number of coiling occurs in the DNA. This is what happens when we are opening two strings of a rope. You see the front part of the rope becomes morely coiled, so it relaxes the supercoiling. BRD1 is the main function is it has a topoisomerase activity, that during your unwinding of the tDNA done by the VIRC, VIRD1, it relaxes that supercoiling portion, which facilitates the action of protein known as VIRD2. VIRD2 is a endonuclease. It normally cleaves the right border and covalently binds during the DNA transfer. So VIRD2 is an endonuclease enzyme. It creates a nick. Nick means it creates a cut at the right border and covalently binds and remain bound during the tDNA transfer. So you see in the figure that VIRD2, it remain bound, it covalently cuts the DNA and remain bound with the tDNA during the tDNA transfer. Okay, now what I have said. Okay, so how it occurs? So normally VIRD2 nicks at the right border and covalently binds during the tDNA transfer to the 5' end so generated. 3' end so produced at the site of the nick. So when you are doing a cleavage, when you are cutting the DNA at the right border, there will be created a 5' end and 3' end as well. The 3' end will be serving as a primer for the DNA synthesis in 5' to 3' direction. So at the same time, when you are displacing the old tDNA strand, the newly synthesized DNA is being produced due to the presence of the 3' site. This 3' end, see the 3' end, this 3' end will be serving as a this 3' end will serve as a primer. The 3' end so produced will serve as a primer for the DNA synthesis in the 5' to 3' direction. And as a result, one of the single strand of tDNA is going to be displaced from the DNA duplex. So the tDNA, the old strand tDNA is going to be displaced from the DNA duplex, and on the other hand, newly synthesized tDNA is being occurred. Okay. Finally, the tDNA strand is nicked on the left border. So the left border, the tDNA strand is finally nicked to release the whole tDNA, and it generates a single stranded copy of your tDNA. You can see that VIR-E2, these are all VIR-E2, these are all VIR-E2 that I am marking. So this VIR-E2 protein binds to this single stranded region of of tDNA, okay, and protect it from getting degraded by from nuclease, okay. Then comes the VIRB operon. VIRB operon has 11 genes. VIRB is essential for the formation of conjugal tube formation between the bacterial and plant cells. Actually, VIRB to fuse together with VIR-D4 protein and participate in conjugal tube formation between the bacterial and plant cells. So it forms the tube. It forms that pathway so that the tDNA can be transferred from your agrobacterium to the plant cell, which provides a channel for the tDNA transfer. There are many VIRB proteins, like one of the protein is VIRB11. VIRB11 has a ATPase activity which generates the energy for delivery of tDNA into the plant cells. So for movement of the tDNA to be integrated into the plant cell, we need movement, and for movement we need energy, and that energy is provided by VIRB11. VIRB11 has a ATPase activity which generates the energy needed for the delivery of tDNA into the plant cells. So see, if I say more deeply, there are more reactions going on to transfer the tDNA into the plant cells. As I have said that VIRB11 has ATPase activity. It generates the energy needed for transfer of tDNA into the plant cell. Then the endonuclease VIR-D2, which nicks the right border previously, remains covalently bound to the 5' end of the single-stranded tDNA copy. So that VIR-D2 still binds to the 5' end of the tDNA. Okay, and this VIR-D2 not only have only endonuclease, it not only does the cleavage and unwinding the DNA done by VIR-C2, it binds to the tDNA because it is acting as a signal sequence which drives it towards the nucleus of the transformed plant cell. So it shows the way. It shows the way that where it has to be delivered, where the tDNA has to be delivered. So VIR-D2, whose main function was to has a endonuclease activity that nicks to the right border, and um, thus it binds covalently with the tDNA. Still now, when the tDNA fully has been displaced from the tDNA genome, from the TI plasmid, when this tDNA is going to be transferred to the host plant cell, VIR-D2 is actually uh, it is serving as a what can I say? It's serving as a signal sequence which drives towards the nucleus of your transformed plant cell, because that plant cell is going to be transformed. It is going to be modified with the tDNA genome. That's why I say in transformation. tDNA most likely enters to the nucleus through the nuclear pore complex. So with the help of nuclear pore complex, it enters. And finally, integration. What does integration has said? That tDNA enters the plant cell in a single stranded form, not in double stranded. Single stranded tDNA enters to the nucleus of the plant cell through the help of nuclear pore complex. It is immediately converted into double stranded form in the nuclei. Immediately that tDNA is going to be transformed into double stranded tDNA. It has been suggested that high frequency of transformation by agrobacterium due to the single stranded tDNA transfer. Double-stranded tDNA integrate at random site in the host genome, most likely by a process called illegitimate recombination. Now, this term I have said initially, just when we are starting the lecture. So, with the help of illegitimate recombination, this double-stranded tDNA, when from single-stranded double-stranded tDNA occurs within the nucleus, this double-stranded tDNA integrated at random sites. Randomly, the double-stranded tDNA is integrated into the host plant genome, likely by a process called illegitimate recombination, and it occurs due to the homology of short sequence of host DNA. Okay, due to the homology, due to the similarity of short segments within the host DNA, this tDNA is going to be integrated within the genome of the host plant. tDNA integration is accompanied by short deletions of 23 to 79 base pair at the site of recombination. So there will be short deletions, there will be short removal of the segment of 23 to 79 base pair at the site of recombination. tDNA is generally integrated in low copy numbers per cell, but up to 1 dozen copies per cell has been recorded. So this is all about your the integration of the tDNA, how the tDNA is going to be integrated into the TI plasmid. Okay, and this is what the diagram looks like. I have not shown you the diagram, I've just theoretically I have said, just go through this diagram, you see easily that how this tDNA is going to be transferred to the bacterial host cell genome, and how it is going to be expressed to form this auxin cytokinin opine that stimulates your cell division, that causes crown gall disease and opine utilization that will be utilized finally by the plants. So this was all about for today's lecture. In the next lecture I will discuss about the how your vectors are being prepared, the co-integrate vector system, the binary vector system, that part I have to discuss, and that will be your last lecture for the agrobacterium mediated gene transfer. Okay, so if you have any doubts regarding this chapter, you can ask me in WhatsApp group. I'm repeatedly saying that in the next, after these few days when I will complete these units, I will take a MCQ test and a short answer question test for you to check that whether you are studying this video or not, because I am not going through the Google Meet because having some network issues. Okay, and that's why I am going through this through my YouTube channel. I am doing all the classes. Okay,